Welcome, everybody, to Player Profiler today with Brendon Booth. I am your host, Brendon Booth. It's Friday. It's 4 o'clock here on the West Coast in beautiful, sunny Northern California. It is 7 o'clock on the East Coast, so I hope you guys are having a good evening, and I hope you have enjoyed your week. It's Friday, and it's April 19th, and that means one thing. It is officially NFL draft season. We are less than 1 week away from the first round of the 2024 NFL Amateur Player Draft. That begins next Thursday. Hope you're ready. I'm super ready. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. We got some player news coming at you. I'm going to be giving you some updates on some free agent movement, etc. In addition, I'm going to have a little chat with you guys about what's happening pre-draft, who to listen to, the signal versus the noise, etc. And we'll get into a little bit of player placement, some predicted landing spots that I've kind of been working on a little bit. I got to say I'm not 100% accurate. I'm not a sayer. I didn't read the tarot cards. I'm not an expert, but I do kind of, I analyze it a little bit and try and find good player fits for people. So we'll be going into that a little bit later. But for now, all right, let's kick off the player news. Not a whole lot of stuff has happened throughout the week. One signing of note, the Las Vegas Raiders signed offensive guard Cody Whitehair from the Chicago Bears. Now, that doesn't really play a whole lot into your fantasy season, although it does. He's a pretty good running game offensive lineman. So it could mean good things with Zamir White, who I'm looking for big things from this season. But basically what it does is it changes the dynamic of what the Raiders are going to do in the draft, because offensive line is definitely a priority for them. And bringing over Cody Whitehair gives them some depth, so they don't necessarily need to maybe take a lineman at the 13, which is the pick that they have, the 13 right after Denver's 12, which means that they can package that 13 up and maybe move up in the draft to get, say, a Jaden Daniels, who's a former player for Antonio Pierce. They were on the same squad at Arizona State quite a few years ago. So the Raiders have some mobility, and based on that offensive line depth from signing Cody Whitehair. More fantasy, I guess you could say, relevant news. Equanimeous St. Brown, the older brother of Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions, signed with the New Orleans Saints. That creates a pretty big wide receiver room with Rashid Shaheed and A.T. Perry being over there already. They already have Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau to go along with Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, of course, an incredible receiving back, Condre Miller, who looks to kind of take over the reins at a certain point. Not a lot of people know this, but Equanimeous St. Brown was incredibly fast. He ran a 4.48 40. And he didn't really do a whole lot with the Chicago Bears when he had Justin Fields throwing to him, and hopefully Derek Carr can give him a little boost. Don't count the Saints out for drafting a wide receiver too. I have this idea in my head that with the depth at wide receiver of this 2024 draft class, if you're an NFL GM and you don't draft a receiver, what are you even doing? I mean, there are so many guys out there. To say that the class is 32 deep would not be an overstatement. There are at least the top 24 are really, really good wide receivers that in any other class would fill out that 7 rounds. there are so many weapons that are out there, and so many bodies. It's really going to elevate the wide receiver position in the NFL for the foreseeable future. There are some theories bouncing around about that. Young guys are coming up in the age of YouTube. Shout out YouTube. And there's all kinds of videos out there about these derbies where guys go out and they'll go one-on-one with against a cornerback. It all gets put on YouTube. And having those separation skills, having that quick movement has become really a cultural. It's become a cultural thing where it's important to show your skill. So a lot of young guys are coming up and they're really focused on the wide receiver game, and we're starting to see the fruits of the last 6 or 7 years that with guys entering the NFL. The age of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors, guys that we'll talk a little bit more about later. But the wide receiver position is changing, and as the culture is changing, it's also changing the other positions too. It's affecting the running back contracts. It's creating a different focus at the tight end position. So these are really interesting evolution times that we're seeing in the NFL. So a guy like Equanimeous St. Brown running a 4.48 enters that crowded New Orleans wide receiver room. But that doesn't mean that the Saints aren't going to draft somebody, because if they can find somebody in the second or third round who can take over that room, maybe be the 1B to Chris Olave, if I'm an NFL GM, I'm taking advantage of that. So Equanimeous St. Brown, I bet you didn't wake up this morning thinking, I'm going to hear some Equanimeous St. Brown news today. Moving along. And in line with the wide receiver position is changing, so is the tight end position. Now, the tight end used to be essentially another offensive lineman or a supplement to the offensive line that had to have some athleticism enough to get out in space and catch some passes. And what we're seeing is the tight end position is changing. Teams are focusing on and this is a lot a result of the Darren Waller situation a few years ago with the Raiders. Guys who are maybe former wide receivers that are big enough to create a matchup problem with the cornerback, and also faster than the linebackers who are back in coverage. That's becoming an emphasis with the passing game in the NFL. So we're looking a lot more at tight ends. And when we talk about tight ends the last couple of years, is there really anyone that we talk about besides Travis Kelce? The young ones. Is there anybody that we really talk about more than Kyle Pitts? Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. Kyle Pitts, who has had not exactly the best situation since he was a rookie and had an incredible rookie all-time tight end season. He's been searching for that perfect quarterback fit. And now he has Kirk Cousins. He's been searching for that perfect offensive coordinator fit. Arthur Smith is gone. So Raheem Morris was on NFL Network, and he said that Kyle Pitts will be a focal point of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, if you look at the history of Arthur Smith, when he was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee and the head coach in Atlanta, you had some good games from Jonnu Smith, etc., but tight end wasn't a focus of the offense. And in today's NFL, you look at the emergence of Sam Laporta, the back-to-back championships from the Kansas City Chiefs, who really rely on Travis Kelce a lot. The huge seasons a few years ago from Darren Waller. That athletic, big slot tight end is really a focus in the NFL. George Kittle, how could I leave out George Kittle? So the Atlanta Falcons, Raheem Morris, he says that Kyle Pitts is going to be a focal point of the offense, and why shouldn't he be? The kid is uber athletic. He's still really young. He already has a 1,000-yard season on the books. The sky's the limit. And typically, tight ends take a little while because they need to learn the blocking schemes and things like that. But we're seeing guys that can come in right now as rookies, and they're athletic enough, and they're not in line, so they're not asked to block a whole lot. They're just supposed to create mismatches in the open field, and Kyle Pitts definitely does that. Kirk Cousins coming over. Apparently, Pitts and Cousins have already been developing the chemistry that's necessary. And one thing that we know, having seen the Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce situation in Kansas City a couple years ago, if defense is focused on Kyle Pitts, are they going to be looking at Drake London? Bijan Robinson is going to be able to get himself open. He's a really good route runner. So wheels up for the Atlanta Falcons. Their offense could really take off with those offensive players. All right. More news. Rashard Higgins, 5th rounder of the Browns in 2016, nicknamed Hollywood. He and Christian Kirksey signed one-day contracts to retire as Cleveland Browns. So good luck to the two of them. Fare thee well, and I hope that they find balance and something to rest their hat on in retirement, because it's not an easy transition for professional athletes a lot of the time. Next item of business. You may have woken up this morning thinking, I wonder if I'm going to hear about T. Higgins today. Now, T. Higgins says that he anticipates staying in Cincinnati. He was asked during an interview about the offseason and the next steps for him. He was asked if he plans to stay in Cincinnati, and he said he anticipates it. He's grown a love for the city of Cincinnati that he didn't anticipate happening, and he's looking forward to staying there. He was franchise tagged in the offseason, and that's frustrating, but he thinks that they can work out a contract. And, with the fact that they have Jamar Chase on the other side, a 1-2 combination of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins has done the Bengals well in the past. And if there's any way that worked out with salary cap magic, that should become a priority for the Bengals. All right. I bet you didn't wake up thinking you were going to hear Royce Freeman news today. The Dallas Cowboys have signed agent running Royce Freeman to a 1-year deal. He will provide depth. The Dallas Cowboys running back room has been kind of out. Rico Dowdle is there. That is one of Matt Kelly's favorite running backs, Rico Dowdle. And Deuce Vaughn is still there. That's one of Jerry Jones's favorite running backs. But the Cowboys have brought in more running backs for visits in this pre-draft season than any other team in the NFL. I'll get to who I think that they're going to take. But they brought in Royce Freeman as a veteran presence. Now, I don't know if you remember, but there was a point where Royce Freeman was really, really a big name. People had a lot of high hopes for him in fantasy, and that just has never worked out, and he's bounced around the league. He was with the Rams, he was with the Broncos, now he's with the Cowboys, and we tend to look at football in terms of who's good on good teams and from a fantasy point of view. But really, it's an employed position. There is a place for every running back in a running back room. There is some value they can bring to the table, even if they're not rushing for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns in a season. They're not really getting into games. Guys on the practice squad can have some value. Guys in the room during meetings can have some value. Guys in mentoring positions can have some value. So there are a lot of things that we don't really kind of sink our brains into, if you will, when it comes to the NFL. And, players not being superstars is one of those things we kind of take for granted that everybody is going to be a superstar, and that's not always the case. Sometimes guys are they're glue guys, they're role players, they're lunch pail workday NFL layman players, and if you can carve out a career of 5, 6, 7 years in the NFL like Royce Freeman has done, there are worse things to do with your time. Now, our story of the day, our top story, concerns the Los Angeles Chargers running back room. Now, the Los Angeles Chargers in the 2023 season, they let go of Brandon Staley and went through a coaching change. They brought in Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh brought in Greg Roman. Everybody knows Greg Roman as a running-oriented offensive coordinator. Everybody knows Jim Harbaugh from his days in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers and his recent past with the Michigan Wolverines. He emphasizes the running game. He still believes in old school smash mouth football. The running game is what's important. 3 yards in a cloud of, or 4 yards in a cloud of dust, 3 downs, 4 yards each, and you've got a first down. It really is an elementary part of the NFL game. We saw a game a couple years ago where the New England Patriots threw the ball like 3 or 4 times and beat the Buffalo Bills. Because when you really break down, when you really distill the game of football, it's a matter of field position, a matter of small progress. So if you can put together a drive that's just a bunch of 4-yard runs, you can get the ball 75, 80, 90 yards down the field, push the ball into the end zone, and you've got a winning formula. The game evolved to a more passing-oriented game, and that's fine. It's much more exciting to watch than, 200-pound men falling forward 4 yards at a time. But there are still coaches out there, like Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, who emphasize that old-school smash-mouth form of football. Well, Greg Roman brought over Gus Edwards a couple weeks ago into the Chargers room. And this week they signed J.K. Dobbins, erstwhile of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, J.K. Dobbins is one of those guys probably similar to Royce Freeman, except that he had more talent and injuries got in the way. Similar in terms of the hopes that we have for them, what they brought as their profile, and anticipating success for them. We thought that the sky was the limit for J.K. Dobbins, and he just has had some of the most unfortunate battles with injuries over the last few years, including last season getting hurt again when we all put our stock in him on our fantasy league teams. Again, he got hurt again. However, he's getting another chance, this time with a different team, but back with Greg Roman. He's going to be with the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, you're asking why that's important. Well, that's important because all of the offensive players, Roman Wilson, J.J. McCarthy, and Blake Corum, have been rumored to go to the Chargers through this 2024 NFL draft. And it makes sense for Corum. Blake Corum was a recruit of Jim Harbaugh. He was Jim Harbaugh's number 1 running back for the last few years. He did suffer an injury, but he's kind of played his way through that, and he's got an excellent profile, and some people have him as the RB1 in the class. So he seems like he would be a perfect fit in Los Angeles, who just lost, Austin Eckler, just lost Austin Eckler in free agency, and my hometown UC Davis legend Josh Kelly has shown that he's not exactly the bell cow that you want to lean on. And you might be saying, Josh Kelly went to UCLA. Yeah, he started at UC Davis, go Ags, and then transferred to UCLA. But Harbaugh has now veteran presence of Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins in his running back room. And if he wants to go out and take Blake Corum, he is certainly set up to do that. So it doesn't mean just because the Chargers signed J.K. Dobbins, it does not mean that Blake Corum is now not going to go to the Chargers. What round he will be available in, that still remains to be seen. But yeah, that's the big news of the last 24, 36 hours. J.K. Dobbins is now a Los Angeles Charger, and again, we wish the best for J.K. Dobbins. hope that he can come back from his injury issues and maybe put together a year or 2 or 3 of highly productive football. So yeah, we get that. All right, let's take a break. We're gonna get a message from our fearless leader, Matt Kelly, real quick. He's got some information about a product that if you aren't already subscribed to, you're gonna want to, especially if you like winning fantasy football for bragging rights or money or what have you. He's got something, and he's gonna share that with you. So we'll be right back, and on the other side, let's go ahead and talk some 2024 NFL Draft.
Oh, hey, it's Mr. Breakout Finder coming at you. The Breakout Finder features 3 key tools: a database of metrics that include speed score, college dominator, breakout age, but also Breakout Finder only stats like dynamic score, level of competition, teammate score. All of these things are part of the overall Breakout Finder algorithm that pinpoints the probability that a player will break out. Everyone's talking about my model does this and my model does that. Well, we give you the data points that go into the model. We have a feature that lets you compare players, and then we give you the precise probability of every wide receiver, every running back, sorted and filterable by class year. So when I'm talking to my friends and I need to show them why I'm so bullish on player X, I pull out the Breakout Finder and bam, there he is. So go to the App Store, go to Google Play. It's $5 to get the Breakout Finder, and then a couple extra bucks to get some of these additional enhanced stats. Go download it and thank me later.
Welcome back. All right. You know, I play a lot of fantasy football, and I do a lot of other content, and it's all fantasy football related. And I have to say, shopping around the different websites, the apps, all the things, I find that edge. There are so many products at Player Profiler that help me. I may be an employee, but I still absolutely use the Breakout Finder, the Dominator. I mean, there's so much good stuff. So go to playerprofiler.com and cop yours. Also, our rookie guide dropped. So get yourself ready for the upcoming draft. And rookie guide. There's a lot of experts that put their work in, and it's a lot of really good analysis. So go grab that. Okay. Let's talk about 2024 NFL player draft. Now, there are a lot of stories that are spinning around. ESPN.com today was just talking about the fact that Jaden Daniels is the betting favorite to be the second quarterback over Drake May. That is something that is out there in the news space. And one thing that we need to kind of like consider is that there's a signal and there's a lot of noise. The key to the NFL draft is that right now, the general managers are not releasing information. The beat writers might be posting stories. Some of like the writers that are out there, they're trying to get their clicks because, I mean, hey, let's face it, clicks is the name of the game. That's how you make your money. And you have to keep pushing out content to be able to pay bills. That doesn't mean that the information necessarily changes. That doesn't mean that the information is necessarily 100% accurate. We saw conflicting stories about the fate of Brandon Ayuk last week. So keep in mind that a lot of the stuff coming out is just speculation. Like I'm going to give you in a couple minutes. Nothing but speculation. It's really not until Thursday, not until next Thursday, the day of the first round of the draft, that some of the information starts getting out. Right now, the teams are talking to each other. They're talking to the reporters. They're not talking to us. They're talking to each other, trying to figure out where they're going to go with their things. With that said, I've done some looking at what's going to happen, and you know, everybody has their mock drafts. Everybody has whatever Mel Kiper Jr. and all those. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go in order of the picks or anything. I'm going to break it down by position. I'm going to give you some quarterbacks, some running backs, some wide receivers, some tight ends, guys that I like and where I feel like they're going. But if you want to look at a mock draft on Thursday, I highly recommend Jason Boris. He's a newspaper writer out of Pennsylvania. His mock drafts are usually pretty spot on. So let's talk about the quarterback position. Consensus is Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears with the 101. I'm not deviating from that. I think that's as good a lock as any. Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears. Let's hope it's not another consensus number one pick like Jamarcus Russell or Carson Wentz, etc. Not that Carson Wentz went with one, but he was kind of like everybody's expected number one. Jaden Daniels. I see him going with the two Washington. Seems to be the betting play at this point. Drake May, who for a certain point of a certain period of time a couple of years ago, he was looking like he was going to be the QB1 of the class. Caleb Williams took the job at Oklahoma, and then he transferred to USC and started to be talked about a lot more. And then Jaden Daniels had one of the most historic seasons of college football quarterback play that we've ever seen. And so that is kind of how it's broken down, the 1, the 2, and the 3. I don't think May goes with as the third quarterback. I think J.J. McCarthy is the third quarterback off the board. And if I had to say how that's going to happen, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to trade with the Arizona Cardinals, and they're going to take Jaden Daniels. Sorry, Drake May will be the third one off the board. J.J. McCarthy will be the fourth one off the board, and he's going to go to the Raiders. And Drake May is my number 4 quarterback, and he's going to go to the New England Patriots. So don't be surprised if you see a 1, 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks off the board. Caleb Williams, then Jaden Daniels, then Drake May, and then J.J. McCarthy. Michael Penix is another wild card who's out there. I think Bo Nix goes to the Broncos at 12. I think Michael Penix falls back. I think he drops into the 20s and somebody jumps up and gets him. He just has an injury history. And then Spencer Rattler rounds out the class. And Jordan Travis from Florida State. 2 years ago, Pro Football Focus had Jordan Travis as highest grade quarterback in all of college football. And then 2023, he played and got hurt. All right, moving on to the wide receiver position. I think the Chargers are going to take a wide receiver, but I haven't decided whether I think it's more likely to take Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors. It just depends on who's available at the pick. If Marvin Harrison Jr. gets taken before the Chargers pick, I think they go with Malik Neighbors. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is still there, I think they go with Marvin Harrison Jr. My number 2 in the class, Malik Neighbors. My number 3 in the class, and this is going to surprise people, Lad Monkey. I like his profile and the fact that he can do a whole lot out there. He's going to be his quarterback's best friend. You hear the saying a lot, he's your wide receiver's favorite wide receiver. And that's the peak that I think Ladd McConkey is going to reach, is he's going to be all the wide receivers, he's going to be their favorite wide receiver. A couple of guys I really, really like, and if you don't know who they are, Google their names real quick. Jamari Thrash and Malachi Corley. Those are 2 guys that I like the class. I am looking for the Jacksonville Jaguars to draft Jamari Thrash, and I'm looking for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to draft Malachi Corley. So go ahead and tune in next Friday and comment and tell me how wrong I am. Position. Now, the running backs in this class are there's no Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley. There's nobody who is the clear runaway winner. There's nobody really with the kind of the steam of Jahmyr Gibbs, although there are a couple guys who are very similar in play style, like Will Shipley. We'll talk about him in a second. Um, but the running back class is very deep at guys who are going to come in and could carve out long careers as an RB1 or an RB2, but a productive RB2. Don't take this RB class for granted. There are a lot of talented kids who are coming into the NFL. They may not all have starting positions right away, but without one leader, there is still a whole lot of depth in this class. My favorite is Brendon Allen, and I mentioned earlier that Dallas Cowboys have with more running backs than any other team in the NFL. I think Brendon Allen is going to be the first running back off the board to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, one of the things that Brendon Allen has going for him, besides being 235 pounds and working out when he wasn't at Wisconsin, he was working out there. He had a breakout season as a freshman, and he's a junior declare. He's coming out after 3 years. He's the youngest running back class, and that's important. He's also 235 pounds. He's also very fast, and he has good lateral movement in small spaces. He hit the scene, and I think that NFL GMs have been watching him for the last 3 years. And there's this thing in the content creator space where the new thing is always feels better than the old thing, and it's fatigue. And I think Allen has been a victim, and he's still my favorite in the class. That hasn't changed, and I don't think that's changed for NFL general managers either. Estimate, I think, is my two. I see him going to Buffalo. I see Buffalo pairing him with James Cook, similar to what's happening in Detroit with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I feel like Audric Estime and James Cook could be a pretty lethal combination for Josh Allen behind him. Blake Corm, I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call him to the Chargers. It's the easy pick. It's the lazy prediction, but there's a reason for that. It does make sense. So Blake Corm to the Chargers. Jonathan Brooks, he is close to that Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson type, but he's coming off an injury, and I think that's going to affect his draft capital a little bit. It'll also affect his start if you are, fantasy oriented. I like him to Carolina. I think that would be a really good fit. He can go there and be behind Chuba Hubbard on the depth chart and eventually take over and be a productive running back in the NFL. And then finally, at the running back position, Will Shipley out of Clemson. He is comps to Christian McCaffrey are a little bit overblown. Christian McCaffrey is an outlier, and you really put that tag on somebody. It would be like saying somebody's the next Mahomes or the next Jerry Rice or whatever. You can't really like 10 historic predictions on somebody. But if there's a player in this class who mimics Christian McCaffrey's style to the point where he's fast, he's strong, he's 5'11", 208 pounds or 210 pounds, so he's just slightly bigger than Jahmyr Gibbs. And one of the concerns about Jahmyr Gibbs is how his size and how he can hold up. Will Shipley is the kind of back that could come in with the intent of being the third back, the receiving back, because he runs great routes and he's got great hands. He's good as a receiving back, but he needed to adjust into duty as an injury handcuff behind the RB1, and then make that team go, oh, we have something here. Will Shipley, I think, is going to be that guy that can stay on the field for 3 downs and really be productive back in the NFL. He is my number 5 back, and I think he's going to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, it's crazy. I just called guys to the Raiders. My Raiders fan on my sleeve, but he would be a great pick in the third or fourth round to pair with Zamir White in that backfield. They have Amir Abdullah in that role, and why would Amir Abdullah when you've got Bill Shipley at home? So there's that. Tight ends. Everybody likes Brock Bowers. Everybody likes Ja'Tavion Sanders. I like Dallin Holker. And if you want a blocking tight end, this rookie class, look no further than Tennessee. UC Davis legend, former Cal Bear great. Again, my fandom is on my sleeve. McCallan Castles. He's your prototypical blocking tight end. But hey, if you need him to catch a 40-yard touchdown pass in a critical situation and finish a year with catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and find himself on NFL Network, that helps no one. He's your guy. All right, that's going to do it for this Friday Player Profiler today with Brendon Booth. I have been your host, Brendon Booth, and I will be your host next Friday. We're back at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I appreciate you watching. Please make some comments. Let me know how I'm doing. Give me some feedback. What can I do different? How can I make this show better for you? I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. What do you want to see? Let me know in the comments, and I'll go ahead and take care of that for you. In the meantime, let's get ready for the draft. Next Friday, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific, complete rundown of the first round of the NFL player draft. I'm so excited, and you should be too. So share this and let's get this going. I appreciate you guys. Have a great week.